No rain is predicted for San Diego County, at least for the next several days. And that's not good news because California may be in the midst of its worst drought ever. So far, healthy water reserves have spared Southern California from the dry spell and mandatory water restrictions. Nonetheless, San Diego City and county officials are talking conservation. Joining me are Dana Freehoff, Acting Water Resources Manager for the San Diego County Water Authority, and Luis Generoso, Water Resources Manager with the City of San Diego. Dana, let's start with you. Governor Brown declared a drought emergency last month, but so far there's been very little talk about mandatory conservation, especially in this region. Why is that?
Right, and that is because, the ratepayers in San Diego County have invested in supply diversification here in our region, in reliable supplies. For example, in water recycling, in Colorado River transfers, a good portion of our water comes from the Colorado River. So we've diversified our portfolio, and in addition, customers have done a great job conserving. So because our demands are lower, we're more resilient and we can better manage these dry conditions. That isn't to say that we don't want people to use water wisely. We want to heed the governor's call to conserve. But I think the bottom line is that we've made the investments. We have a more reliable water supply here in San Diego County, and so we don't anticipate it needing mandatory conservation measures.
So that's a good segue into Luis. So interim Mayor Todd Gloria said last week that San Diegans basically need to step up their game in the face of the statewide drought. What does he mean by that?
Well, first he wanted to thank San Diegans for actually doing a good job in wasting no water, because even if when the mandatory restrictions were lifted back in 2011, San Diegans continued to conserve water. So, but he says that there's more that can be done, and we should be doing it. And we're looking at ways as to how we can conserve more water. The city staff, City San Diego staff, is providing programs and services that will help San Diegans to be able to achieve that. And really, just like in the last drought, we started with a call for voluntary conservation before we ended up with mandatory restrictions. We'd like to do that again this time. Allow San Diegans to respond to that, see if voluntary conservation works. But if needed, definitely our city council is exploring the possibility of mandatory restrictions.
So there are no restrictions at this point?
Well, no mandatory. There are permanent restrictions that are in place. When Councilmember Fry, before she left, she enacted several restrictions that are in place all the time. So say, for example, you're not allowed to let your water run off the property, say from irrigation, excessive irrigation. Not only does it waste water, but it also contributes to pollution of our bays and beaches. So you're not allowed to do that. And then there's only certain times of the day that you're allowed to irrigate. It's before 10 or after 4 in the afternoon. Those are permanent restrictions that are already in place.
Dana, this week the Water Authority will consider implementing level 1 conservation steps. What are those steps?
Well, again, when the action they're going to consider is to notify our member agencies of a drought response level 1 drought watch. And what that does is it allows them to enact or activate their ordinances, similar to what the City of San Diego has in place now, but it will be more universal throughout the region. And the same types of common sense measures that Luis talked about not, watering down your pavement, except for health and safety, irrigating either in the morning or the evenings. So really common sense things, but really more importantly, just to heighten the awareness of the need to conserve throughout the region.
So self-sufficiency is a big part of any conservation plan, and that is the category under which the Carlsbad desalination plant or project exists under. What is the status of that project right now?
Right, I'm glad you asked that question, because really seawater desalination is really a drought-proof supply, and so we're very excited about that project. It's under construction right now. It's anticipated to come online at the beginning of 2016. We wish it was sooner, but it is on track now to come online in 2016, so we're very excited about that new drought-proof supply.
Luis, I'm curious. You said that San Diegans have done a great job in terms of voluntarily conserving water. Yes. How do you get residents to voluntarily do it?
A big portion of that is feedback. We had a campaign called San Diegans, no time to waste, no water to waste. And really that communicated the urgency of the need to conserve water. And everybody did their part. Now, the question now is, the citizen, am I doing it just by myself? I'm not going to conserve if I'm the only one doing it. So the next phase of that communication plan was to say that San Diegans waste no water. Collectively, you're doing enough.
And we've got to wrap it there. Okay. Luis, Dana, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you.